Welcome back, good family. It's your boy Seth Garu Baxter with Makers Bar, where we're creating 1 million leaders today for tomorrow. With us today, we have one of those mentor type leaders joining us in our continuing pursuit of getting your elected officials here in a platform that's warm and welcoming to them and their ideas and getting to know them a little bit better. Today we have with us, elected to the 60th District, Assembly Member Dr. Corey A. Jackson. He also chairs the Human Services, he's Subcommittee number 2, and currently chairs the Budget Subcommittee for that area. Dr. Jackson, how are you, sir?
Very good. Thank you for having me.
It's absolutely our pleasure. We are really pleased to have you here, and it just feels like such an honor because you have some of the same loves I do in working with young people, so I hope we get to delve in that as well. Absolutely.
Looking forward to it.
Fantastic. So, Dr. Jackson, can you guide us through a little bit of your background story?
Sure. Well, I represent the 60th Assembly District, which is in the Inland Empire of Southern California. It is basically 80 miles east of Los Angeles. And I grew up there my entire life. I'm actually a first-generation Californian. And so my mom's from Texas, my dad's from Mississippi, and they were part of that great migration from the South to South Central Los Angeles.
Oh, yeah.
Where they met. And then I was a part of that second generation of migration from South Los Angeles to the Inland Empire. And so I grew up here my entire life. I've also went to Cal State San Bernardino for my bachelor's. Went to Cal Baptist, which is in Riverside, for my master's and my doctorate in social work. And, you know, when I was younger, I worked for a group of elected officials. I worked for 2 state legislators and 2 members of Congress. And then I decided to venture out on my own to be able to create a nonprofit mentoring organization called SBX Youth and Family Services. And I lived off my savings for 2 years to make it work. And then I ended up doing it for a little over a decade before I was elected to the Riverside County Board of Education and then to the state legislature in 2022.
The organization that you founded, give us a little insight to it, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. I mean, really, its impetus was that there was a group of us that I went to high school with that we are products of mentoring. We were latchkey kids. Our parents, usually single mothers. When we came home, there was no one home, so we had each other. And so I was really raised by a village where people in the community, people at school took a hold of us and allowed us to participate in different volunteer opportunities. And so because we had great mentors, and my mentor, Ernest Ronay, is now a retired teacher, but now I represent him in Sacramento. So it's actually interesting. And we wanted to give other young people the same experience that we had. And because we knew how beneficial it was to us. And so I started off with the mentoring. This was during President Obama's My Brother's Keeper initiative.
Oh, yeah. And
so I took the lead in creating the nonprofit, reaching out, and I was me and my partner, Kevin Moore, was the first 2 volunteer mentors. And we started off mentoring middle school young men. And then eventually, before I left, we were mentoring close to about 400 young people throughout Southern California. And of course, when you start working with young people, you understand that young people aren't in silos. So if you're going to help young people, you have to find ways to help the house. And if you're going to help the house, you got to find ways to help the community, right? And so we started getting involved in other systems change work as well. And played an active role during the pandemic as well.
Fantastic. Well, as I mentioned, we have a very similar interest. I was with the program for over a decade, Youth in Government, otherwise known as the Model Legislature in Court program. And so it is somewhat, it's an advisory role as an advisor where we bring young people to understand how a bill is developed from the beginning to the end. But in addition to that, it also acts as a mentoring program where the advisors, men and women, are mentors to the young people and showing them that. So I completely value that insight. And as you said, you help the young person, you help the house, you help the community, and thereby we all benefit from that insight in those mentorship programs. And I know extremely the value that they added. I'm still in contact with a number of the young people, so I appreciate your work there. Now, in doing
some of the young people were able to vote for me. You know, some of the young people. I mean, it's amazing when you help to create a village and actively continue to participate in that village. Then you really see the benefits and they remember.
Oh yeah.
We still, all of us remember adults in our lives when we were younger who helped us along the way and, you know, gave us a spanking or two along the way and, and gave some good advice along the way.
Absolutely. Well, I see that in having your understanding of running that program and then leaping into politics, what was the bridge that got you into running for office?
You know, I've always had an itch to be an elected official. Again, I think probably my first one was in Rialto, California. The school district had an opportunity for a student, a senior, to sit on the Board of Education as the student representative. Mm-hmm. So you're sitting on the dais just like all the other board members, asking questions, giving your opinion, you know, those type of things. And it was the first time, again, my mentor, before my freshman and sophomore year, just like most African-American boys, right, I did nothing but sports. And I had an African-American male teacher that said, hey, you know, there's other things you could be doing too. And just like any other teacher, mentor, you know, you're voluntold to do stuff.
Voluntold.
When I tell the story, I really say he threatened me. But for some reason, he doesn't agree with that assessment. But every year, there was 2 high schools at the time in the Rialto School District. I went to Rialto High School, and it was Rialto High School's turn to elect amongst their peers in the school district, in the school, who is going to represent all the students in the entire school district. It was the first time I ever ran for anything. And it was a school-wide election, and I ended up winning. And I spent my senior year on the school board, and I fought for preferential voting rights, which means that every time the board had to vote, I got to vote. And it wasn't a part of the official quorum, but it was the official vote on the permanent minutes of the meeting where students stood on a particular issue. And of course, you start meeting all the other elected officials in the community. And I said, you know what, I think I might want to do this one day. And believe it or not, people would be interested. People remember the wins.
Oh,
people
yeah.
remember the successes, but they don't remember they don't know the failures. And people will be surprised. I lost 5 elections before I won my very first one to the Riverside County Board of Education. And it wasn't even a time I was planning on it. It just happened that a vacancy came up. I was recruited to do it. I wasn't planning on it. And the one time I didn't plan to run for something was the time I actually won. Right. But I didn't even finish my full 4-year term because then redistricting happened. And then a new seat opened up in my community. And again, you know, I wasn't planning on doing it at the time. I was still finishing my doctoral program at the very same time. And next thing you know it, I'm in the legislature 2 years after my first election that I win.
I think it's really important giving a somewhat of a definition. Some folks in today, and part of my role is to help educate them in learning what their officials do. Please remind our audience, an assembly member's duties are what?
Absolutely. The primary duty is to be chosen amongst your neighbors to represent their voice in Sacramento, to introduce legislation on their behalf, to vote on pieces of legislation that other members introduce on their behalf, to fight for priorities in the state's budget on the constituents' behalf. And then also what most people don't know is that our job is to help them rectify issues when they have various concerns or issues related to any state department. So that is the EDD department, the DMV, the Department of Social Services, any department that is controlled by the state. You can call your state legislator and open up a case, and they can advocate for you to that state department on your behalf to get you the answer that you're looking for or to help rectify an issue. And so that's what we call casework. And so it's to be able to be their liaison to state agencies, vote on proposed laws. And then I think the most important part, especially in today's political environment, is the legislature's job is to provide a check and balance to the governor to ensure that, there is a true representative democracy when it comes to the state. So that's what we do. And in the state assembly, we run every 2 years. And we represent about 500,000 people each. And there's 60 of us. There's 80 of us. And because there are 80 of us, obviously with a state as large and diverse as California, everyone's voice really matters. And if I was a state senator, I would represent about 1 million people. And I would be representing, I would be running for reemployment, every 4 years instead of every 2 years.
Thank you for that. Now, how would you describe your leadership style? And since you were elected twice, how has it evolved as well?
Well, I think that what's very important is two things, and this is very important if someone is a voter. If you're a voter, you have to understand that technically you are not voting for a leader, you're voting for a representative. Now, in some cases, the public wants their elected officials to be leaders. But you're looking at two different things. Someone who's going to take the initiative and propose things and help organize community members, to help organize members of the legislature, to help organize community organizations. That's what leadership looks like in the state legislature. But a representative really just says, how does my constituents want me to vote on any particular issue, right? And so my leadership style is, I'm very invested in a strength-based perspective, which just means I look at what I'm best in and I lead with that. And it just so happens, and maybe it's the social worker in me, is I'm very well at organizing people towards a common goal. I'm very good at convening people to have very important and most often very tough conversations and try to ensure that the conclusion is something healthier, positive, and leads to outcomes that people would be very happy with. And so I'm very invested in ensuring that I'm providing that type of leadership, the leadership that helps solve problems, not create problems, the type of leadership that kind of helps to make people better and healthier. and the type of servant leadership that I think we need more than ever these days.
I think it's very true. What are some of the pressing issues that you're finding for the people, your constituency, key issues?
Well, we know that cost of living is the number one issue facing people. It just costs a lot more to provide for the basic necessities. The number one driver of that is the increasingly high cost of housing. And in California, cost of housing is extraordinarily high. And the good news is, over time, we can fix it. The bad news is it's going to take a heck of a long time. And it's even worse to say that people in the past have had my positions, saw it coming, but chose not to do anything about it.
Mm.
And now we're in a place where it's very, very hard. In order to help some people, we might have to hurt some people. Other people might have to sacrifice in order so everyone can have an opportunity to affordable, sustainable, and healthy shelter. And so housing, overall cost of living, of course, inflation is not helping. In the Inland Empire, gas prices is a big issue during the summer months. Everyone is starting to see their utility costs go up, especially electricity. And I think overall, especially if you are in fire-prone areas, your insurance rates are going up a whole lot. So the question just becomes, how do we keep the population stable? Because when people are in survival mode or in a state of crisis, bad things happen. And it creates ripple effects. And mostly those ripple effects are creating unhealthy decisions, unsafe decisions that affects the whole community as a whole. So really two things that is driving me in Sacramento. Number one, how do we make sure that we keep the population stable, help them to meet their basic needs and put them on a foundation so they have an opportunity to thrive as they see it? But then second, how are we going to set up the next generation for success? And I think when we talk about leadership and overall responsibility to your family and to your community, society as a whole, we have to recognize that a part of that is something that our parents, our grandparents, and definitely our great-grandparents did for us. And that is they made sacrifices in order to ensure that the next generation would be better off than they did. They understood it was a sacrifice to be able to do that, that you couldn't have your cake and eat it too, right? And that is something we've lost sight of. We are the first generations. And if you're in your 60s now or younger, we are the first generations where the next generation will actually do worse than us. We are the first generations to fail in setting up the next generation for success.
What do you think caused that?
Well, the lack of sacrifice. We wanted to have it all. We wanted to continue to maintain our own comfort and acquire our own resources and not leaving resources available for the next generation because we were taking it all. And we still continue to do so, right? If you were born in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, you knew you had to sacrifice. In many cases, you had to put your body on the line for the next generation to be more successful. You had to be willing to risk your employment. You had to be willing to risk your freedom in order to ensure that you're setting up the next generation for success. And it just costs a lot more to do so. And so, none of us want our taxes to be raised, which means that it's going to take more resources to ensure that our universities continue to be even more affordable, so that the next generation doesn't be saddled with debt when they graduate from college, right? We have to be willing to give up some of our own home equity in order to ensure that we have more houses available, so that the next generation can be able to have a home to purchase in their own community that they grew up in, right? The idea is that we forgot that setting up the next generation requires sacrifice from you. Think about it. If you are a parent, you make daily sacrifices. You say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I can't go out to the club tonight." Right? Either because I need to make sure my kids are fed, or, hey, I just need to stay my butt at home and make sure that I'm helping to set the right example for my kids and make sure that they're doing right. That is a sacrifice. I can't have filet mignon every day. Why? Because I got to make sure that my kids have their clothes that they need, that they have the food that they need, that they have the school supplies that they need, right? That I have enough gas to make sure that I can take my child to school, or enough gas to make sure that I can get to work every day to provide for. But one thing we did not do is understand on a macro level, if we don't consider every child in our community, every child in our state, every child in our nation as our child, just like we do with our own children we take care of at home, it's the same thing. We have to be willing to give up part of our own comfort, our own freedom, our own resources to ensure that the next generation has what they need to be able to be successful. And we are no longer doing that at a macro level.
I'm very curious, because when you mentioned some earlier, some are going to feel the pain a little. Can you elaborate on that?
Absolutely. So, a lot of people don't want a lot of housing, especially newer housing around them. Why? Because it drops down overall home prices, right? But if you're more interested in making sure your equity stays the same, you're going to fight more housing development. As a matter of fact, how many times have you seen communities oppose affordable housing projects that are in their communities? Because they're thinking about themselves. They're not thinking about the other members of the community, the other children of the community, who still should have a human right to live in affordable, dignified, stable, and healthy housing, right? Many people are not speaking up right now against the injustices we're seeing all over the nation, all over the world. And why? Because they don't want to put their own employment at risk, or they don't want to lose their social circles, right? Sacrifice is in order to be able to do that, both in terms of financial capital, social capital, all of those, and personal capital is very important. And if we don't recognize, I think the question we should all be asking ourselves is, what am I sacrificing today so that young people will be better off tomorrow? I think if we just ask us that question alone, and if you can't say, "Oh, I ain't giving up nothing," then you're helping your own child to be worse off, because they're going to have to interact with all those other people, right? And at the end of the day, we have a social contract with each other. And a part of that social contract means that, yes, we all pitch in so that we can all be able to thrive.
What for today's parent, single or if they're growing up in a two-parent home, they're both parents have jobs, and they have, let's just say, they have two children.
Mm-hmm.
They're sacrificing enough. Are we is that correct?
No.
What would be the next steps for them, you think?
Well, the next steps would be to making sure that, what does the community need?
Okay, I see. Okay.
Right. What
Yes.
does the community need? Because there's all kinds of, but there are other children in that community. So yes, there's going to be times where city leadership says, are we willing to, raise our own taxes so that we have the after school programs that our young people need? So that seniors have the senior center that they need so that they're not being isolated. So that we can have enough law enforcement to keep us all safe. To make sure that we have decent and healthy recreational opportunities, right? That we have the type of food programs we need to make sure that no one in the community is growing hungry, right? All of those things are part of also setting up your child for success, but also setting up other children for success. It is not enough just to do, is when you're taking care of your own children, that's your responsibility. Okay? You don't get no high five or no 5 stars for that.
No, you don't.
Right? I mean, that's just what you're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But when you're asked to step out of your own home to do things and recognize that you have a responsibility to community as well, and how you treat others, how you welcome others, how respectful you are to others, right? Are you supporting and engaging with community-based organizations who are trying to make sure other people in the community are healthy? That's your responsibility too.
We're on the precipice of this huge shift that I think is going to impact how people are able to sacrifice and allow more flexibility and choices on this AI revolution that's about to occur. Mm-hmm. And how do you see that fitting in into building the community? Is there a danger to the addiction of AI and becoming too reliant on it, even though it will add these benefits where parents might be able to give more to the community and volunteer? Or do you see the balance between the good and the bad of this shift that will supposedly be supportive of us creating those opportunities to work in the community more because we have an AI device helping us to do our job, or an AI device that can run some of the errands electronically so we can spend time at the community center? What are your thoughts on that?
I think with everything is too much of a good thing could actually be harmful. You drink too much water, you can actually literally drown yourself. Right?
So I should stop drinking water today then.
Right? But it's all about balance.
Yes.
Right? You have too much fun, you start doing destructive things to yourself. And so the same thing is with AI. Clearly, it has some benefits that go beyond the human capacity. But also, if we are over-reliant on it, then we start losing good-paying jobs for people, right? Then we create situations where we lose important skills because now we're over-reliant on it. For instance, I grew up in the 90s where computers started to become more and more available, and you were taught you need to learn how to type, because if you can learn how to type, you'll be ready for the future.
Yes.
And then texting started happening. And then these touch screens started happening. And the next generation no longer learned how to type.
Oh, very good correlation.
Back then, if you didn't know Microsoft, you couldn't have no office job. You had to know how to use Word, Excel, right? Access, other business programs. Now, because you have all of these AI abilities to edit things for you and to, do a lot of these things, is starting to become a lost art for people on how to use functionality on different, even computer programs, let alone AI. And I think it's the same thing where people don't realize, and I think we start to learn that a little bit in terms of the pandemic and other things. What happens when things just start shutting down?
Yes.
How do you feed yourself? How do you protect yourself? How do you teach your children how to learn when schools are no longer open at the time? Right? The foundations of which AI is built on, we still have to be knowledgeable on those foundations, because one day the lights might turn off. And then what? And I think it's the same thing with AI, that we need to understand that AI is an addition to, not a supplemental of.
So
Right?
not too much to be concerned about if we're keeping it in perspective, is what I'm hearing.
If we are keeping it in perspective, the question is today, are we keeping it into perspective?
That would be my question.
And I think the idea is there are some who don't want to keep it in perspective. They want to test its most optimal capacity and monetize it. So people want to monetize AI in a way to make you reliant on it. My job as a legislator is to create guardrails so that people are not hurt that should not be hurt due to AI, and to ensure that it doesn't completely, because remember, if we let AI take control, what we don't realize is it's not AI that's in control, it's corporations that are in control.
Absolutely.
And if you allow corporations to now be the determinant of what you can and cannot do, read and cannot read, learn which and cannot learn, then we all lose our freedom over time. And we have to be careful about that. So am I all for AI? Yes, but with guardrails, and making sure that people are still able to learn how to read, write, and think for themselves, which is necessary to have a functional democracy.
Very necessary, I think. I think guardrails is the key term that I've heard from some colleagues and others who have been on the field, and having even some of them on my program. I think my question would begin, what are the guardrails? Are the guardrails securing that companies who are building AI, that in their policies, they must have strict adherence that this will have X amount of reduction of human, will have X amount of reduction in human employment opportunities, or are guardrails some legislation that said that each company that is pursuing this direction, they are in relationship with local communities as far as seeing how employment goes. Is it about community engagement with these guardrails, or is it strictly something that has to be talked behind the scenes with private business and the government?
Well, if it's not illegal, entrepreneurs test it to the very limits. That's what entrepreneurship at its very best.
Absolutely.
You push, You see how far you can go with it, and then see how you can monetize it. Right? I mean, that's just what it is. And that's what entrepreneurs should do. But as a legislator, my job is to look at the entire ecosystem and say, okay, if you are creating AI tools in the medical field, I need you to make sure that you are not just testing one race on that technology, but you are testing it in a diversity of people.
Yes, I'm so glad you said that.
So that you are not creating discriminatory or racist outcomes. For instance, face scanning technology still has a hard time analyzing my face because the technology was not tested on very many people with my skin tone. Right? And so that technology, if law enforcement uses that technology, I'm more likely to be misidentified. Right? If I am, during COVID, we realized that, when they started to do those skin temperature assessments.
Yes.
Your forehead.
I do. I remember those. Yes.
Well, guess what? When they did that and they tried to assess how much, not only your temperature, but how much oxygen your lungs were absorbing, that technology was misdiagnosing people with my skin tone, and people died because of it.
I did not know that.
Because technology is reliant on physical features, pigmentation, all of those things. And so if a doctor is using AI, they should not be able to use the results that AI recommends as the sole decider on how you're going to treat a patient. You still have to make sure that you're relying on the preponderance of the research and the evidence and best practices based upon the diversity of the population that you're serving, right? If we don't legislate that, guess what? People are human. People get lazy. And they take AI's word for it. Even though the very creators of AI says, please don't take AI's word for it. Why? Because AI is just responding to the data that was put into it to read.
Exactly.
But what if that data was racist? Right? What if that data was reliant on research that was created for discriminatory purposes? Right? So the idea is that we have to make sure that we have the proper checks and balances necessary. We have to make sure that our law says that AI cannot gain access without your permission to all your personal records and all your personal information, and then so that you can sell it off to a third party to be able to be monetized, right? And our laws have to say that you still have civil liberties. Which means that technology, you should be able to click a button and say, you cannot read more than what I'm giving you right now, right? And that's exactly what Apple does. Apple has on your phone to block any opportunity for any malware or any cookies or anything to read what you're doing and be able to store that information, right? If you are, and I'm glad more phone companies are starting to do this, is that, if your device is locked, it's locked.
Yep.
And not even law enforcement can get into it without a warrant, right? I mean, all of those things are important. We have to realize that when you use technology, you are giving up your rights.
Yes.
All of those things you have to agree to before you use an app. You're not reading it. but you sure are agreeing to give up some stuff, right? And so I think at the end of the day, technology, just like capitalism, just like any other thing, needs to have checks and balances so that it is not taking advantage of people in order to build wealth.
In these checks and balances, it calls for a bipartisan collaboration of sorts to help establish these guardrails, as we mentioned. How can the two sides of our larger two parties come together, or what are you doing yourself, not just with AI, but in resolving some of the issues? Because we know this last election has definitely been very divisive, and with AI, which is such an important and fastly approaching shift change, as we mentioned, what are you doing, and what can our elected officials do to build a bipartisan collaboration? Is it if you guys begin to talk about shared issues that you may disagree on, but you have prioritized, let's talk about this? Or is it that we know that AI is coming up, let's just target this one? Describe to us how you can build, or what you're doing to build this bipartisan collaboration.
I think that in times like these, we have to understand when we are making decisions based upon ideology, or are we making decisions based upon data? And the partisanship comes in when you start making ideological assessments. And we have to also, as legislators, stop chasing the money too.
Now you're saying something there.
And so I think the idea is that we have to make sure that when I see a bill that requires more protections to not allow young people to be harmed by social media, there are some members who say, well, you know what, I get a lot of contributions from these companies. So, maybe I'm not willing to vote for that, even though their own children are probably being harmed by the social media that they're consuming. So I think a part of it is we have to make sure that we are stepping outside of ourselves, sacrificing ourselves.
That's a key point. I just was seeing how that can be brought back around. This is one of those sacrifices we're talking about for the betterment of all of us.
You have to be willing to give up that contribution to make sure that your kids and the community and your own constituents are going to be better off, right? All of those things are important. And so I would say first, number one, and we need to make sure that we are looking at remembering our own Constitution and our own Bill of Rights. That in America, we are guaranteeing people's privacy. So we need to ensure that people have privacy. And we have to make it very clear or ensure that people understand when they're voluntarily giving up their privacy. And then when we see that there's certain technology that are having negative outcomes for people, it's our job to step in from a public health perspective to ensure that we're legislating to provide more guardrails and protections so that those type of negative outcomes stop occurring. And so it could be from a mental health standpoint, it could be from a physical health standpoint, or it could just be from a civil liberty standpoint. At the end of the day, democracy is a trade-off. Mm-hmm. And us as representatives have to make sure that we're meeting the moment as well. But that also means sometimes we're telling people that we like and our friends no from time to time.
Which is that's part of the painful part you mentioned earlier as well.
Absolutely.
Furthermore, elaborate a little bit on healthcare and a bipartisan collaboration. Is that an issue that can ever be met together by both of the larger parties? And I say both of the larger parties, I tend to be very careful that libertarians and or Peace and Green Party, they're included in that, but are most recognizable being the larger of the two. So your stance on healthcare and being able to reach a collaboration, is that possible?
It depends on the issue. I mean, obviously, unfortunately, when it comes to issues like abortion, that is certainly a partisan issue. When it comes to, uh, issues of reproductive rights, that's always a highly political issue. But it's only a highly political issue is because people are using it as a political tool so that they can gain more power. And I think we have to recognize that as well. In terms of healthcare, I mean, everyone knows we need better healthcare. Everyone knows that healthcare should be a human right. But again, there are powerful interests who are stopping a lot of people from voting for something that we see more in European countries where healthcare is not even whether you can have healthcare or not. It's not even an issue because in other countries, healthcare is a human right. And in America, you have a right to not die, but you don't have a right to be healthy.
Interesting.
And that's what our emergency rooms are, right?
Yep, I agree wholeheartedly.
Their job is, okay, we're pretty sure you're not going to die, so now you can leave. But if you ever think you're going to die again, you come right back, okay? Right? And so I think that we have to understand, and again, and the reason why I think we don't have universal health care also is because people have been taught that in order to have universal health care, your own health care might be, quality might be lowered. Again, this idea of me instead of we. I think that's also a part of it as well. So, I mean, obviously, is our healthcare getting better? More and more people have healthcare more than ever. Do we have better health outcomes than other nations? Absolutely not. We are still, for the most wealthiest nation in the world, the most powerful, not even close in the world. For us to not be the healthiest people in the world says something.
It does a great deal. I think there's a number of contributing influences that have brought us to that spot. But I find that
part of it is culture.
Yes.
Part of it is, our own excesses and lack of discipline. And another part of it is that we have decided to make healthcare a for profitable venture, where it's actually profit over health. I think that's also been an issue that makes us not as healthy as other people throughout the world.
It's very interesting. This healthcare seems to be one of those subjects, and I'm always very curious about where can we meet on the same bridge. But it tends to continue to be a strain due to, like you mentioned, some of the religious aspects of it, but our different perspectives. But I do feel we all agree it is something that we all deserve, and it shouldn't be such an issue. And I find that as a fascinating conversation that seems to be ongoing, which somewhat leads me to this next question. It's been, both of us are men of color, and Black men's mental health has been an issue more recent that I've been hearing about. And I find myself very glad to hear that it's becoming more of an open discussion, not only for Black men's mental health as a topic, but mental health itself in men. In California, we have a number of different men that are looking for assistance and support. Is there any way, where can you elaborate, I should say, on the issue of mental health as it relates to men?
I would say this first. Number one, when I was in college, I was diagnosed with anxiety. And so for over 20 years now, I take daily medication for my mental health. And one day I just realized I just stopped losing my appetite. I couldn't focus. And I was like, what's going on? and I eventually went to the doctor and got help. Unfortunately, we still have that stigma.
Very much so.
And that if we go, we're admitting that there's something wrong with us. But guess what? As a trained social worker with a master's and a doctorate, I've come to one conclusion: that if there isn't anything wrong with you, that is not normal.
Good point.
We are humans. We are flawed. We all need assistance at some point to be healthier. It's just that for many people, it's in different ways. It could be physical, but we have to treat our mental illnesses same as we do our physical illnesses.
Do we spend enough money there? Do we spend enough money in mental health, or is it improving?
No, that's why we're in a mental health crisis now, because we have not been investing in the infrastructure and the professional workforce necessary to be able to do so, right? We don't have enough inpatient and outpatient bed services when it comes to mental health. We don't have enough therapists and others. We don't have enough people getting mental health assessments until something goes really bad. We are so far in the hole, similar to our homelessness crisis. We're so far in the hole, it's going to take another generation or two to be able to get our way out of it. But mental health is critical. You can't help your family. You can't support your family. You can't help the person that you love. You can't support the person that you love if you are not the healthiest you can be.
Absolutely.
And the healthiest you can be is not just from a physical standpoint, it's also from a mental standpoint. And we have to start just like when we just like when we're coughing for too long, we end up going to the doctor just to make sure everything's okay. But when we're having unhealthy thoughts or depression or anxiety for a long period of time, we don't think we should do the same thing. And we need to, because if we don't, we are actually hurting people that we love, not helping them.
Is mental health and it as an issue, is it or should it be more a local government issue or a statewide issue, or is it more a federal issue that needs to be addressed as far as the funding?
Well, when it comes to funding like that can only happen from the federal and state government. I mean, that is a core function, right? Particularly when states don't have the financial capacity, because we can't print our own money to be able to fund the services that the population is demanding. Then it's the job of the federal government then to make those funding accessible. And we have to understand something. There would be no freeways if it wasn't for the federal government. There wouldn't be no internet if it wasn't for the federal government. There wouldn't be no breakthroughs in curing certain elements and diseases if it wasn't for federal funding. When big, seemingly impossible things need to be done, federal government is the one to help to get that done. And so, obviously, now from a democracy standpoint, we should be demanding more from our elected representatives to ensure that they deliver that. But we also need to make sure that we understand that, this is what tax dollars are for, is to be able to fund things collectively that we can't do ourselves. And so, but we also need more mental health programs in our schools so that we can actually mitigate the harms upstream instead of waiting for the disasters that come downstream, right? We have to continue to invest and create incentives for more people to go into those fields so that we can have more professionals available, because we're in a workforce shortage as well when it comes to mental health clinicians. And so we are in a mental health crisis. We are still seeing alarmingly high suicide rates. We are still seeing alarmingly high addiction rates, because people are self-medicating instead of finding healthier ways to deal with mental health challenges. And so a lot more to still be done.
If you saw a vision of the future, what does it look like? Not only in your political life, but as far as the direction of our country.
Oh, wow.
Is somewhat broad, but just, and you maybe even address it as far as what your goals and intention are for the vision of the future.
I would say this: you are guaranteed to have better life outcomes. We're guaranteed to set up the next generation of success if we do a couple of things. Number one, make sure people have access to affordable, healthy, sustainable housing. Number two, making sure that nobody lives in California or the nation and cannot find enough food to eat or access the kind of food that they need to eat. Number three, that no family, especially family with children, are raising children in poverty. And then number four, I would say, is making sure that people have the whole range of medical care, both physical and mental care, that they need when they need it in a timely way. And then lastly, make sure that there are no economic barriers when it comes to access to training, job training, and education, all the way through higher education. If we can do those 5 things, and we can deliver on those 5 things, all the data suggests we will be a healthier nation, and we will make sure that we've done our job to set up the next generation for success.
With that in mind, who would you say, living or past or present, has been really somewhat a roadmap for your ideology? Who would you say influenced you the most significantly? And it could be a book if you there's not particularly a person.
I think maybe I would think about presidents, really. I would say people like, if you want to go way back, I would say like Thomas Jefferson.
Okay.
Huge proponent of education and diversity.
Even with the scandals, he's still a good example.
Even with the scandals, when you read his writings, again, we're humans.
Yes. That's right. That's right.
There's many things that you tell other people that you don't follow yourself. Right?
Right. Absolutely.
Sometimes I'm giving other people advice. I'm like, dang, Corey, why ain't you doing that, man?
I can see that myself too. I'll say, you know what? You should have thought about that for yourself, man.
That's right. I used to teach Bible school before I got elected. I'm like, oh, wow, Corey. You might need to repent yourself. But I would say Thomas Jefferson, FDR by far, and people don't pay enough attention to it. I'm trying to remember Lyndon Johnson. I think between those folks, and maybe even Dwight Eisenhower.
Okay.
Dwight Eisenhower as well, and Truman. I think those are the people kind of that frame kind of what good government can actually do when it wants to, and it makes it a priority.
And finally, you mentioned faith or having taught Bible school. Where does faith play a role, if it plays a role in your life, not only your political life and professional life, but in your life?
Oh, it's a central focus in my life. Now, I'm not an evangelical, meaning I don't.
And not there's anything bad with that either.
Well, it depends on what ideology you do.
I knew. I saw the eyes go up. I knew.
I have a propensity to tell the truth, unfortunately. But I think that, overall, the idea of everyone needs to be grounded in a sense of who you are and why you exist.
Yes. Yes.
Doesn't matter who you are, why you exist. What is your responsibility to your creator? What is your responsibility to your family? What is your responsibility to your community? And what is your responsibility to the world? And where do you fit into that? Without that grounding, too many people can never find the type of lasting joy and happiness that is essential to living a healthy life. And so all the research show when you're grounded in a sense of faith, you actually have healthier outcomes.
Absolutely.
Why? You can deal with trauma in a healthier way. You can deal with letdowns. You can deal with failures in a healthier way, right? You become more resilient. You're choosing better daily habits of self-reflection and grace and charity to others, right? It just is. Now, when it becomes unhealthy, because remember, anything good in excess becomes unhealthy.
That's right.
And when you become unhealthy in your religious practices, you begin to demonize people. You begin to other people. You deem them less worthy. You begin to try to force people to live the way you have decided to live, right? You've decided to make sure that people are not worthy unless they believe what you believe, which also is not biblical, by the way, right? But the idea is that we have to work on ourselves before we think we can work on others. And it's God's job to work on others. It's your job to work on yourself.
As he says in serious face. I like that. I like that a lot. I got to tell you, Dr. Jackson, it has been truly an honor and a pleasure. I know your day is filled with a number of different duties and responsibilities. I really look forward to speaking to you again because there's a couple of different international issues, and just having been familiar with your area a great deal, I would love to delve in some more. And in particular, I'd love to talk to you more about some of the youth program ideas and how we can be supportive of you. So I look forward to you having another visit with us.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. Hey, thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Dr. Corey Jackson, Assembly Member Corey Jackson, thank you so much, good sir. And I just have had the most pleasant time in speaking with you. And thank you. I will be one of the people that says thank you for the work that you're doing. And thank you for the focus on young people, as that is near and dear to my heart. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for the time.
Absolutely. As always, my good people, we say the revolution that we all want is the love-olution. Let's create a revolution of love and spread it out there. Let's go out there and love harder, and that will be our purpose. From Makers Bar, I am your guy, Seth Garu Baxter, creating 1 million leaders today for tomorrow. Here's Makers Bar, signing off. Peace and be good to each other. Dr. Jackson, have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.